So hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Anime Z. Today we going to see continuation of What If Deca had a Foresight Quirk. As we know, Foresight Quirk granted the user the ability to accurately predict all of the target's future moves and actions for an entire hour. Foresight activated by first touching a target, and then making eye contact with them. So, let's see how this quirk gonna change Izuku's life. Izuku felt numb. His dad was missing. The dream was a vision. It didn't feel real. His dad always came home. But Izuku couldn't see a future where his dad would come home. He had been missing for a month when he decided that there was one thing he could try. While the police were busy trying to find out what happened to him, he would seek a hero who could help lead them in the right direction. He only hoped that he would listen to a boy he'd never met before. Instead of going to school like he should have, knowing that Katsuki would mention something and it would get back to his mom, he took the subway. He stayed along the wall, ever attentive to everything around him, just in case. In a contradiction, it took forever and no time at all to reach his destination, the hero agency where Sir NightEye was located. Keeping his head low, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the letter he had written for his uncle asking for help. They were family. Surely he would at least be able to help find his dad. With a determined step, he entered the building. He walked briskly to the reception desk. "Hello, little boy." The man at the desk greeted him. "Can I help you with something?" "I need to speak with Sir NightEye." "It's very important," Izuku answered. The man didn't seem to change his expression. "I see. It must be important if you came here instead of school," he replied. "Unfortunately, he is not here at the moment. May I take a message?" Izuku held up the envelope and handed it to the receptionist. "My, rather prepared, aren't you? Sir NightEye is a hero, and heroes can help when they're needed. So I knew there was a chance he wouldn't be here." Izuku didn't say that he was certain NightEye was in the building. He had one vision where Sir NightEye came from the elevator partway in the conversation. He didn't know how that timeline would have gone. He just wanted to verify there was a chance. "Very well. I will make sure that Sir NightEye gets this. May I ask what you need help with?" "My dad's gone missing. I was hoping he would help." The man pursed his lips. "That sounds very much like a police matter, but Sir NightEye does all he can to help others. I'm sure he'll do what he can to help find your father. Did he just go missing?" "I could call Dash. He's been missing for a month. My condolences. I'll see to it that Sir NightEye receives your inquiry." Izuku tilted his head forward. "Thank you." The receptionist smiled as Izuku counted down from 12. At his silent count of 1, the phone rang. While the receptionist was distracted by the call, he slipped his way to the elevator. He would not let the opportunity to help find his dad slip out of his hand before he tried everything. He opened the doors to the elevator and slipped inside. He'd have to be quick. He could handle any headache that came from it. He pressed the button with the number of the floor that Sir NightEye's office was located, thanks to an interview question he had found with him talking about it. He ran through the scenarios in his head. Most he could handle. It was if there was anyone on the other side of the door that he'd have to worry about. He had no control over that, and there was a chance that someone would be trying to enter the elevator that he was on, and he'd be escorted out. It appeared luck was on his side, as he saw nobody in the nearby area of the elevator's opening doors. He exited quickly, not taking any chances of someone approaching and seeing him. As quickly and as quiet as he could, he ran to Sir NightEye's office and quietly opened the door. He saw the man that was his uncle on the phone, his back facing him and distracted by whoever was on the other end of the line. "Listen to me, Toshi Dash." Izuku quietly shut the door and made his way to the guest chair in the office setting. He focused his thoughts on what to say as he did his best to ignore the call that his uncle was in. It wouldn't have been right to listen in. But he couldn't risk staying in the hall and getting caught before speaking with his uncle. He looked over at his uncle, who groaned rather loudly, then pocketed his phone. He raised his hand to rub his eyes as he walked back to his chair. Izuku watched with all eyes. His uncle lowered his hand, and his gaze went to the paperwork on the table. Izuku had no idea how to start the inquiry of finding his dad to an uncle he never met. Didn't his mom say he had a sense of humor? Why couldn't he think of a joke? So he blurted out the first thing he could think of to say. "Nice weather we're having." His uncle's eyes shot up and locked with Izuku's. His narrow yellow eyes locked onto his with emotion Izuku didn't recognize. "Good day to look for missing people." "Young man, how did you get up here?" "The elevator. Like most people, I think." "Do heroes prefer taking the stairs?" "That's not what Why are you here, kid?" "My dad is missing. And I think you could be really helpful in finding him. While I admire your dedication in making it here, kid, that is a job best left to the police," he said as he pressed a button on his desk. "Centipeder, to my office. He's been missing for a month. Mom's getting worried, and he's never been missing this long. Your father has a history of being missing. He most likely has a mistress and has decided not to come home." Izuku felt something inside him snap. He thought his dad was cheating on his mom. Didn't he know how much his dad loved his mom? Didn't he know how much they loved each other? He felt angry. How dare his uncle accuse his dad of just leaving him and his mom? "The police found his suitcase abandoned a street down from our house," Izuku stated, his voice both cold and hurt. "He wouldn't have abandoned us. And that is a matter to be found by the police." "But you're a hero. Don't you even care about Dash?" "Sir?" a new voice interrupted. Izuku didn't even turn to look and felt angrier seeing his uncle ignore him in favor of acknowledging the person at the door. "Centipeder, could you please escort this boy home? I do believe that he should be in school or at home." You're not listening to me," Izuku yelled, the pain in his voice rather clear. He found thin and long arms picking him up from the chair, and he began to struggle. He wasn't a match for the pro hero, though. A young boy only beginning to learn jiu-jitsu was no match for a trained pro hero. Sir NightEye glared icily at him. "Pardon me for not dropping everything for one case when I have other lives that need saving. I'm sorry that you miss your dad, but that is a matter for detectives and the police." Izuku felt the words die in his mouth as he was taken out of the room. "Hey kid, don't take what he said too hard. Being a hero is difficult, and he's having a rough time," Centipeder said. Izuku let himself go limp. He had been ignored when he needed help from a family member. From a hero. "Why can he decide who he helps and who he doesn't?" Izuku said softly. He didn't expect an answer. But unlike his uncle moments ago, Centipeder seemed more willing to listen and to answer. "We don't. We go off what we have and try to save everyone we can. He happens to be on a bit of a time crunch and is trying to hold things together. He can see the future, can he? Why isn't he more prepared? Well, he can only use it once a day. Even if he can see a person's entire life, it's only for once a day. But doesn't my dad's life mean something too? Mom and I know that he wouldn't disappear like that. He loves us. I'm sure he does love you. And his life does mean something. I'm sorry if Sir NightEye's words didn't come across that way. Now, why don't I take you home?" Izuku just nodded his head and was allowed on the ground under the watchful eye of the centipede-headed man. "My name is Midoriya Izuku. I live in Mizurufu. You came quite a long way to talk to Sir NightEye. He could have seen when we would find Dad. Maybe even speed it along. Sir can't change the future. Just see it and prepare." "Funny, I've never seen it set in stone," Izuku responded. He found himself liking Centipeder. He was a lot nicer than his UNC than Sir NightEye. "Friends, I have one question. Why Izuku doesn't hold Sir NightEye in the highest regard revealed." Izuku really liked Centipeder. He was rather nice and was willing to listen to him and talk to him about his quirk. "Your quirk is so cool," Izuku gushed. His mood greatly lifted from his earlier interaction. He now felt he understood why his mom had never taken him to meet Sir NightEye if that's how he was. "Why, thank you," Centipeder responded. In his mind, Izuku was an odd but friendly enough boy who seemed highly motivated and had had a lot of faith in Sir NightEye. Not to say that he was wrong in his faith in Sir NightEye as a good hero. He was incredibly good at what he did, but he could be rather rigid despite his humor. It was also a bit odd that he had come to him over a missing persons case at his age. A younger kid was more likely, and usually, the parent was just as enthusiastically looking for their child as well. He was older, and from what he could gather, the police were already involved. So why the insistence of seeing Sir NightEye? Perhaps his mother would be able to answer once he brought the enthusiastic young boy home. You've talked a lot about my quirk. May I ask what your quirk is? Centipeder inquired. Izuku's eyes seemed to dull a little, making Centipeder slightly worried and far more curious. My quirk is called déjà vu, he began, his tone quieter than it had been previously. I can see possible futures. Pardon? He inquired. Future vision quirks were exceedingly rare. In fact, the only one he knew of was Sir NightEye. His visions always came true down to the second. I can see a few minutes out, but I can see a few things that can happen. The first one I see is usually what happens, but not always. Sometimes I can find a way to do something even I don't see. Like when I didn't want to fight with my friend and my dad intervened even though I didn't see it happening until it did. I see. So what do you see right now? Us on the train. Nothing happening as far as I can see. We continue talking. You ask if there is anything else I can do with my quirk, or how I'm applying myself, or what career I want to go into, which I want to be a hero and am learning jiu-jitsu. It's pretty neat, and I'm learning how to use my quirk when I'm fighting to get an advantage. Centipeder blinked. Izuku seemed sincere, but was it an intelligence-based quirk that relied on observation, or was this somehow an actual future sight quirk similar to Sir NightEye? Until he knew which one, he decided to focus on something else Izuku had said. You answered the last two questions. Not the first. Care to go into more detail? He was surprised to see Izuku's face light up with a blush. It was adorable seeing how flustered he was from the question, but that only made Centipeder more curious. I can. He trailed off into an incoherent mumble. Centipeder stared at him, wondering what exactly he had just said. I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it? He asked as he leaned in closer to hear him better. I can let others see the future too. He spoke just a touch louder. Centipeder blinked at the declaration. That wasn't what he expected to hear. If it were true, it had the potential to be a very useful quirk in the field. So, how do you share your ability? Centipeder asked. Izuku buried his face in his hands, looking a lot like a strawberry with his freckles. I'm guessing skin contact? Izuku's face grew even redder at the comment. I have to. Now his face was entirely red, hiding his freckles and making him look more like a tomato. I have to kiss. He could understand the kid's embarrassment. Heck, it would even be awkward as an adult having the full extent of their power used by kisses. Still, it was a potentially incredibly useful quirk. So if you were to kiss someone's hand it doesn't work that way. He interrupted, still looking embarrassed. It has to be their face. Centipeder held back a chuckle. While even more embarrassing and awkward to need to kiss someone's face, it was adorable to see his reaction to his quirk. All right. He didn't say anything more. The kid had already had a long enough day, and it wasn't over yet. He still had to get him to his house and have a small discussion with his mother. Sure, Sir NightEye didn't say to speak in length with the kid's mom, but he was curious about why Izuku visited.
Straight face.
Inko knew there was something off with the day. The fact that Izuku had kissed her on the cheek before leaving the house was, at first, ignorable. He had been worried ever since Hisashi disappeared and didn't want to lose her either. He saw it as his way of helping her stay safe. So why did she have a feeling that she was going to get a visitor soon? And that Izuku had something to do with the unexpected guest? Regardless, she began heating water for enough tea for 3. If she was wrong, it was just water. If she were right, then she would be prepared. She lifted her head from the kettle when she heard a knock at the door. With a pleasant smile on her face, she walked over and opened the door. She looked down to her son, who looked a bit sheepish, standing in front of what appeared to be a well-groomed man. She looked up to see the taller man's face to see a face familiar through the news. Hello? Izuku, why do you have a pro hero with you? She asked. I met him earlier, and he brought me home. Why don't you both come inside? I have a kettle heating up for tea. Mom! I'm sure he's busy. I would love to, Mrs. Midoriya. Come inside and make yourself comfortable. I'd love to hear what led up to you bringing my son home. Well, it is a rather interesting story, Centipeder responded as he was led to the couch. Looking around, he could see why the kid was insistent that his dad did not abandon them. There were many family pictures around the house, on walls and shelves that were not all picture perfect, but had a sense of love and happiness in them, with the dad not shying away one bit. There were small touches of a man's touch in the home, such as the little teasing sticky notes he could see on a few of the shelved pictures. Somewhat flirty teasing, but it looked like a man's handwriting. Along with those were pictures that felt familiar, for lack of a better word. Pictures of young Izuku's mother with a smiling green-haired boy with golden highlights. I hope you like jasmine tea, Inko called out from the kitchen. I enjoy a cup often enough, he answered politely. It was either this or orange tea, she replied as she brought in his cup. I have a feeling you don't like orange tea, do you? Not particularly. How would she have known that? Izuku, please join us, Inko called her son over. Izuku sat in the open space next to Centipeder. So, who wants to tell me what happened? Izuku looked down to his lap. Mr. Centipeder, why don't you start? Well, young Izuku here decided to stop by the hero agency I work for, and Sir NightEye asked me to bring him home. Inko's eyes locked onto Izuku's form. She didn't look mad. She looked melancholic. Izuku, did you find what you were looking for? She asked oddly. I found an answer I didn't like, Izuku admitted, sounding just as sad as he did before when Centipeder first had him out of the office. He didn't even try to look. Well, he did have a limited vision, Izuku. But he could have tried, Izuku angrily cried. His head lifted, and tears began to cascade down his cheeks. It's like he doesn't even care about us. Centipeder now fully could admit he was confused. This sounded a lot more personal than what he had seen earlier. He does care, Izuku. He's just going off of what he can see. Just like you. He didn't even open his eyes, Izuku responded cryptically. Am I missing something here? Centipeder spoke up. Izuku, why don't you call Katsuki about any school work you missed while I talk to Mr. Centipeder here? Izuku knew an out when he saw one and quickly left the room to call his childhood friend. Inko's attention went solely on Centipeder. Does Mirai know who he is? She spoke in a far more stern tone. Centipeder gave a confused look. Should he have known your son? I'll take it as a no. Then again, I haven't spoken to my brother in years. Centipeder's eyes widened. He had heard of this woman. Sasaki Inko. His boss's elder sister. The woman was showcased in only 3 personal pictures he kept in his desk drawer dedicated to his family. The other 2 were their parents. The way he talked and hid the pictures, he assumed they were all gone. Inko continued despite Centipeder's moment of confusion. We're both partially to blame for that. I told him I didn't want to see him if he couldn't take any time for family, and well, by now, heroics is his entire life, no doubt. She took a sip of her tea, reminding Centipeder of the cup before him. He lifted the cup and took a sip before speaking. So Izuku is Sir NightEye's nephew? By blood, yes. That would explain his quirk. Doesn't it? I was surprised when it came in. I thought that Mirai would help Izuku learn about it, but it never happened, as you can probably guess. I still haven't told him about Izuku anyway. So, I assume you don't want me to tell my boss about you too? Inko was quiet for a moment. She took in a deep breath and let out a sigh. If you could promise me that he would look into and help find my husband, I wouldn't stop you. I can't stop you. But unless he will help find my husband, I think it's better for both my brother and my son that Mirai doesn't know about Izuku. Well, no harm in me not telling him. You are both reasonable adults. And he wanted nothing to do with the chaos that would likely ensue if he were to tell Sir NightEye about who the boy who broke into his office really was. Inko smiled gratefully at him. He gave his own smile as he finished his tea and stood up. Anyhow, I should take my leave before Sir NightEye calls to see where I am. Mom, Kaken didn't pick up. Izuku spoke up as he re-entered the room. May I head over there? You may, but head right back. We haven't fully discussed what happened, Izuku. Yes, Mom. Hold on a moment, I happen to be leaving as well, Centipeder said. He walked over to Izuku, the nephew of his boss that his boss had no idea existed. A kid with a desirable quirk by all sorts of people and who had a missing father. "Hey, Centipeder?" Izuku spoke to him. "Yes? How tall are you with your neck stretched out?" He paused for a moment, then realized he thought his scarf was just a long neck. "Close your eyes, and I'll show you." Eagerly awaiting an answer, Izuku closed his eyes, waiting for the command to open them. Centipeder unwrapped his centipede-based scarf from his neck, showing a human neck connecting to his centipede head. He then dropped the scarf on Izuku's shoulders. Izuku's face scrunched up at the additional weight. "You can open your eyes now." Izuku's eyes popped open, and he had his neck stretched back to try and see the tall Centipeder. He then began to lower it until he saw the hero with a human neck at the same height Izuku had seen him before. "My scarf is rather realistic, isn't it?" Izuku looked at his shoulder to see Centipeder's scarf. "Oh wow, this is so cool!" And wasn't the young kid gushing over one of his scarves just one of the cutest things? "You can keep it if you like," he said. He had more back in the office and at home. Worst case, he could always order another one through the agency. Izuku's eyes lit up and sparkled like emeralds. "Really?" "Sure. Just stay safe and keep working hard to become a good hero," he answered. Looking at Izuku gush over the scarf, he could admit that he did see a bit of Sir NightEye in him. He gushed all too similar when dealing with All Might merchandise. "Guys, I am thinking that Izuku with Centipeder's scarf is something I have imagined and think is a cute idea." Years had passed with not one word had come forward to hint what had happened to Hisashi Midoriya. It had hurt to have an anniversary of his disappearance, but it was better than finding out that he was dead somewhere. They hung on to the hope he was still alive somewhere. But they had to continue with their lives. Izuku was prepared to go to Hero Con with his mother. He had done something with his dad, but his mom insisted that he continue going and take lots of pictures to show his dad once he was found. Izuku agreed and dressed in his costume. Unlike the prior years of dressing like All Might, he decided to dress up like the hero that had taken the time to listen to him and his mother and believe them about his father. He proudly wore the scarf given to him by Centipeder and slipped on a tailcoat-styled suit with glee. He wasn't one of the most popular heroes, but he was one of Izuku's favorites, so it didn't matter even as his mother took his picture with his new Centipeder hat on. It would join the Missing Years album they had been making for when they found Hisashi. And if Inko happened to send the picture to her new friend Moshi Juso, well, that was between her and Juso. "Don't you look dashing?" Inko smiled at her son. Izuku gave a large, almost All Might-like smile. "I feel heroic," he responded. "Are you ready to go?" "Yep. I'm so excited." He was practically buzzing in his spot. He then stopped for a moment. "We should go now." "Did you see something, Izuku? It looks like there's a high chance of a villain crossing our path to the subway if we don't get moving in a few minutes." "I thought you liked watching hero fights?" his mother asked. It was odd that he would pass up the opportunity to see a hero in action. "There won't be a hero when we're there. There'll be lots of destruction. It's not going to be safe in a few minutes. And if we wait until after, who knows how long it will take us to get there." Izuku ended with a slight whine in his voice. "Well then, let's go." Just as Izuku had mentioned, a villain had crossed the path they had passed mere moments after they had gone by, destruction following in his wake. Inko had to admit, his quirk was very useful for finding safe ways to a place. Soon enough, they were at Hero Con. Izuku's face lit up, and had he not been trying to keep in character as Centipeder, he might have rushed inside in excitement. Instead, he did his best to be a gentleman and escort his mom inside, where she proceeded to take more pictures of him. The day was similar to a whirlwind to Inko as Izuku went around to different vendors and sat listening to different hero panels. Izuku loved it to pieces. It was about 3 when Izuku started to act a little odd. His face flushed red, and he grabbed his mom's hand, pulling her from a vendor with urgency. Inko didn't fight her son as she was sure Izuku's quirk had shown him something important. He paused once they turned the corner, having the vendor out of sight entirely. "Izuku, is everything all right? Did you see something?" Izuku's face was frozen in confused horror. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetie?" If I see something that hasn't happened yet, and it's something private, am I a peeper? Izuku, what did you see? She asked, sounding worried. I saw someone older with no pants, he said, rather embarrassed. Inko opened her mouth, then closed it. He had no control over what he saw, but it hadn't happened, and he technically hadn't been flashed. She could understand why he was uncomfortable. More importantly, Izuku, do you know what the streaker looked like? If we saw them, could you point them out? Izuku nodded his head, then froze. Mom, I see him. Inko followed his line of sight. She saw a blonde-haired boy with a cartoony face. He was fully dressed in an All Might outfit, and looked like he was having a good time. He was standing next to another boy dressed as her brother, and looking more depressed than she would have thought a person at the convention would look. She watched as the blonde noticed them, and his face lit up. Look, Sir NightEye. There's one of your sidekicks. Let's go say hi. The boy was very enthusiastic, and Inko felt even more confused. This was the boy who had yet to flash her son, possibly? Mirio, we shouldn't bother them, the other muttered as his friend dragged him towards Izuku and his mom. Izuku froze like a deer in headlights as the two approached. Inko stood next to him in a comforting manner. Perhaps the little threat would not come to pass. After all, Izuku did get them away from the location he saw the unfortunate sight. There was a chance that it wouldn't come to pass at all. Then she could work through the mental dilemma at home over him not being a peeper unless he was actively searching for a future where he would see such events. But she would also keep an eye on the potential flashed. Her baby did not need to see that, especially outside his quirk. Good day, citizen. Hello, Centipeder. The All Might cosplayer announced. Izuku averted his eyes from the blonde boy. Instead, he focused on the dark-haired boy. Hello, Sir NightEye. Izuku kept in character and responded cordially to the shy boy dressed as his ongoing least favorite hero. Is there anything I should be aware of? The shy boy hid his face and found himself too nervous to respond. Hey, it's okay, Tamaki. He's just playing along. I don't think I can handle this. I think I should just go home. Tamaki. This is to get out of your comfort zone, remember? Get you a little more confidence like Fat Gum suggested. Mirio, the other boy said softly and sounding scared. Izuku hated the sound. I believe what he means that he detects that he is needed elsewhere to stop a crime, Izuku said, giving him an out. He gave a small smile to the shy older boy when what the blonde had said caught up with him. Wait, are you two hero students? Ahaha. Yeah. We are. I'm future hero Lemillion, and he's future hero Sun Eater. Izuku's eyes lit up, completely ignoring what his vision showed him earlier of the streaker blonde in favor of talking to future heroes. Considering the blonde hadn't done anything bad, it seemed fair to do so. That's so cool. What kind of quirks do you have? The blonde's smile didn't waver. My quirk is permeation, Mirio stated proudly. It lets me walk through solid objects. Izuku's eyes sparkled with excitement. Inko had to hold back a chuckle as Izuku pulled out one of his notebooks and began rapid-fire questioning Mirio and the applications of his quirk, including asking what his speed was going through objects and if it was any different than when he normally ran, how breathing worked in spaces without gases, could he make only one part of his body intangible? Could he make his elbow intangible and have his hand and shoulder area still solid? Then the question of the hour. If your quirk lets you go through solid objects, how do you keep your clothes on? Well, I have to have specially made clothes from my hair. So, do you visit a quirk-sanctioned hair salon with someone who could stimulate your hair growth for your clothes? It wasn't unheard of for specialty shops to pop up for people with specific quirks, both in use and requirements. Mirio's face went startling blank. No. So, you only have one outfit for your quirk? My hero costume. So, hypothetically, Izuku began, his face paling at the recollection of what he had seen possibly occurring. If I lost control of my quirk, I would be buck naked. Izuku averted his eyes. He couldn't help but think, was this why his friend was shy and flustered? Was he just trying to avoid seeing something he shouldn't? Sorry to ask? No worries. I've accidentally flashed my classmates on more than one occasion. Sir NightEye's been working on it with me, though. Izuku's excitement fizzled out with that comment. Sir NightEye's in turn was a flasher. Sure, why not? No time to help find his dad, but plenty of time to help a high schooler keep his pants on. It may have been unfair on Mirio, but he really didn't want to deal with someone so close to Sir NightEye. Centipeder was an exception, as he was nice enough to listen to him and send updates when he could regarding found person cases. He looked over to his friend who had cosplayed as Sir NightEye. He still seemed really shy, and he was dressed as his current least favorite hero, the only contender in Izuku's mind, but he was learning under fat gum. That had to be interesting. Izuku, we need to head home. His mom spoke up before he could ask the other boy anything about his quirk and how it was like to learn under fat gum. Okay, Mom. Thanks for answering my questions, Izuku said to the two boys. Mirio's smile seemed to grow. No worries. Hey! Quick picture first? I haven't seen anyone else dressed as Centipeder. Izuku looked over at his mom. She had pulled out her own phone, ready to take their picture. Mirio handed his phone to her, the camera ready as he pulled his friend and Izuku into the picture. Specifically, he was on the end with Tamaki in the middle. Tamaki looked uncomfortable, but he stood for the picture his friend wanted. Izuku smiled at the phones. 2 flashes indicated that they were done. Mirio gratefully took his phone back and showed his friend the picture. Izuku waved goodbye and left with his mother before anything unfortunate could happen. He did not want a chance being flashed in person. He watched his mother type away on her phone, smile, then pocket it. Mom, why are you smiling? I'm just enjoying time with you, and thankful that your vision didn't happen. Yeah. I'm happy it didn't happen either. Izuku shuddered.
Straight face.
Juza smiled when he heard his phone ping. He knew that it was a little silly, as it could be anything, but he was sure that it was something from his interesting friend, Inko Midoriya. Who knew he would have made friends with his boss's sister? He opened the message, held back a chuckle seeing Izuku dressed like him, and somehow found Mirio as All Might and a boy dressed as Sir NightEye. It was surprisingly cute, as Izuku's mouth was hidden by the scarf, his freckles peeking out under his eyes and just over the scarf. The hat had little antennas that were near identical to the All Might hair Mirio was sporting, with a few stray curls peeking out from the hat. Yep. He was keeping the picture. Shame he didn't think there was a way to recreate the image with his boss and All Might. The blonde-haired hero was hard to get a hold of. For some reason, only their boss knew. He figured that despite Izuku's dislike of his uncle, Inko would appreciate the picture of her brother mirroring her son's cosplay. Maybe one day. Notes. I had to. Mirio is a fun character and an intern for Sir NightEye. Besides, Izuku having a mixed reaction to him was a fun concept. Heroes. His whole class wanted to be heroes. Izuku couldn't blame them. He wanted to be a hero too. And there were some amazing quirks in his class. But he and Kaken were aiming for UA. According to their teacher, at least. It was on his mind as he left school on a seemingly normal day. It was sunny, nothing stood out. He sighed and took his usual path home. He didn't care for the alley's appeal, but it was faster to get home, and he had homework he wanted just to get done. It was routine. He could walk the path blindfolded. Only students used the alley during the day. He didn't want to think about what happened at night. Given the trash buildup, he could assume drug deals. He swore he saw a needle or 2 in the alley before. His thoughts were interrupted with a low sound from behind. He felt an instinctual scream of danger coming his way. He pivoted around to see something bubbling up from the maintenance hole. His eyes were wide as a being made of what looked like sludge appeared with a large eye locking with his. His heartbeat pounded loudly in his ears, making him practically deaf to the world around him. There was something sinister about the liquid being. He jumped back as it shot out towards him. His sight was only able to look a few seconds to the future while also moving to avoid being caught by the persistent being. He was not able to keep dodging when the liquid being grabbed his foot. He screamed as he lost his balance, falling to the ground. He could feel himself being smothered by the individual, unable to breathe. He squirmed and flailed, trying desperately to escape when he couldn't breathe. He tried to grab the sludge being, but the oozing being just slipped through his fingers. Oh God, he was going to die. He would die because he was comfortable with the routine on the way home and didn't look first. Tears welled up in his eyes as his vision began to grow dark. It was dark when he felt something on his face. Something consistent. His body felt heavy, but he felt his eyes slowly open to a blurry image. He tried to focus on the form. Young man? Young man, are you with me? He knew that voice. Holy crap, he knew that voice. He coughed harshly and forced himself to sit up rapidly. All Might! He cried out. Sure as the sky was blue while currently cloudy, there stood All Might before him in his heroic glory. I was a bit worried, young man. I'm glad to see you're all right. Every boisterous word was an experience. Izuku might even argue a spiritual one. Then he recalled that he was sitting in a dirty alley and had been suffocated. Wait a moment, where's the villain? All Might let out his signature laugh that made Izuku feel every bit like the giddy All Might fanboy he was. No worries, my boy. He held up a large bottle that Izuku couldn't believe contained the man who had just moments ago been trying to kill him? Wait, he had a golden moment here before All Might. Hey! Could you please, you already signed it? Izuku yelled in surprise. Was it from his time working with Sir NightEye that left him so prepared? Of course. Now, I must be off to the police station. Take care, young man. He disappeared in the blink of an eye. Izuku remained frozen in his awe. He heard a nearby thunk, drawing him out of his stupor. He took a peek with his quirk to see the bottle with the villain who had tried to kill him had fallen from All Might's hand or pocket. He cautiously walked over to the bottle. He could see that the bottle wasn't broken in his little quirk test. And he knew that the man needed to be taken to the police. He was dangerous, but he was also a person. If he remained in a bottle that liquid couldn't escape could make it difficult to breathe. The man. No one deserved to die that way. Feeling sick to his stomach, he walked over to where he knew the fallen bottle was. He could see the hateful eye of the person who just tried to kill him. He grabbed the bottle and slipped it into his backpack. He wondered why the bottle was so light when it had a whole person in it. But that thought would have to wait until he was back home. He needed to hand it off to the police but not get it noticed on the street. There were only so many ways to explain why he had a gooey and sludge-like man in his hands. He looked over his options to try and figure out where the nearest police station may be. In the age of heroes, it wasn't the most common thing to know. With a push from his quirk, he made his choice to move forward through the alley. His steps were controlled and smooth so as not to jostle the man in his backpack. Who knew how loose that lid could be from the fall? It took a few minutes longer to get there than he would like, but he was happy that there were no incidents. Stepping into the police station was nothing he wasn't familiar with. When his dad disappeared, he and his mother had visited the station often to check on any information on his whereabouts. It only really served to make him familiar with the police and their stations. Excuse me. The officer lifted his head and gave a cordial smile. Can I help you, young man? I was attacked a few minutes ago. I'm fine now. All Might helped me out. But he may have accidentally dashed. An All Might thing? Hey Nail Mesa! Get over here! Izuku stood in confusion. All Might was the #1 hero. Why did they have a specific officer called over when he was mentioned? He watched as a tired but rather plain-looking man appeared next to the receptionist's table. He wasn't plain in the same way the All Might cosplayer Mirio kind of was. Mirio was more cartoony. This man looked like someone had taken the most generic features imaginable and put them all together on one person. Truly unremarkable. I don't even work here. I'm just delivering some papers. The cop working the table was unperturbed. I've heard you work with All Might a lot. The kid here has a criminal he fought. The plain-looking man looked at him. Do you? Yeah. He's in my backpack. The cop sitting down snorted. The other man didn't. In your backpack? Yep. Would you get them out? Oh. Right. He slipped his backpack off and pulled out the bottle. The man looked livid if his glare was any indication. Holy crap! The cop behind the counter screeched. Naomesa sighed, unsurprised. Now that Izuku thought about it, it was odd to carry a criminal in a bottle in a backpack. Was it because he had worked with All Might that he wasn't surprised? Izuku placed the bottle on the table, not wanting to hold on to him any longer than he needed to. "Let me get your statement, kid," Naomasa said warmly and a little tired. He led Izuku towards a table where he could be questioned about what occurred. "Please sit down." Izuku complied. No sense arguing over standing or sitting since he didn't know how long the man would want to ask questions. "What is your name?" "Midoriya Izuku." "Your age?" 14. "Your parents' names?" "Midoriya Inko and Midoriya Hisashi." "What number can I reach them at?" Izuku rattled off his mother's number and the house number. No need to mention his dad's number. It was still active but always went to voicemail. He and his mother still had it programmed in their phones, just in case. "Now, do you feel comfortable telling me what happened?" "I was coming home from school. I was taking my usual way home when I heard something." He regaled the officer with what happened. He spared no detail of his encounter as it was a fanboy's wildest experience. He seemed to re-enter his euphoric feeling of meeting All Might all over again. A goofy grin couldn't be kept off his face, as he may have gone into a little too much detail over the minute he spent interacting with All Might. Naomasa took it all in stride and wrote everything relevant down. "Just to make sure I understand, the man in the bottle did attack you." "Mem. And you don't recall what he said?" Izuku shook his head. "I'm sorry. I think it was fight or flight going on, so I didn't pay too much attention." "It's alright. It happens. It's okay," he responded. "Now I am going to call your mother Dash." "Please don't," Izuku pleaded. He didn't need his quirk to know that it was futile to stop the officer. He was a minor in a police station. Maybe some heroes would leave it at that, or even handle the police entirely, but not the officers. "Sorry, that's not happening. You brought in a criminal. And while you didn't do it as a means of vigilantism, you still were affected. And you're a minor. That's non-negotiable." Izuku let out a whine. His mom was going to smother him when she heard what happened. Can we not tell her that he knocked me out?" he begged. "Don't you think your parents would want to take you to the hospital to have you checked out?" he answered instead. "Well, yes, but Dash. Saved by All Might or not, your parents should know what happened." Izuku put his head in his hands as the man used the number Izuku gave him to call his mother. It was only a matter of time before she got to the station and smothered him. Not the worst thing in the world, but certainly embarrassing. It was indeed embarrassing when she arrived and threw her arms around him with tears in her eyes. He felt his face flush a brilliant red. Naomasa could understand why Izuku had not wanted his mother called with how emotional she was, considering that Izuku seemed fine all things considered. But it was also adorable to see someone who cared so much. And hearing that she was taking him to the hospital to be checked over after what had happened was a bonus.
Straight face.
Juzu was sitting in a casual bar to enjoy a rare time outside of work. He was happy to have a moment of calm as he waited for his, co-worker to arrive for drinks. "Sorry I'm late, Moshi." A familiar voice appeared. "No worries, Tsukauchi. I'm sure you were just finishing up with your work?" "Yes. Last minute All Might thing," Naomasa moaned. "Ah. A small thing then if Sir NightEye didn't say anything about it." "Yeah. Did a neat job of it though. Got the guy caught in a bottle." He expected a chuckle from the good-natured hero. It sounded ridiculous and made the station he was visiting laugh in amusement. "A young man brought it in, didn't he?" Juzu inquired. Naomasa raised his brow. "So Sir NightEye did mention it?" "No. I happen to be friends with the kid's mom." "No." Naomasa laughed. What were the odds? And with his quirk, he knew that the centipede-based hero wasn't lying. "It's true. His mom called me from the hospital as he was getting his lungs and stomach checked, followed by some blood work just in case." "Sounds like they're thorough. Why do you think most heroes avoid hospitals?" Juzu asked in good humor. "I assume most of you are afraid of needles," Moshi joked. "Are you kidding? Those doctors check everything. It's so awkward. You stub your toe, and they want a colonoscopy. Nothing but the best for heroes. Well, who knows what could go wrong with a toe stub if you're going to the hospital for it. You know what I mean. They are paranoid that if a hero leaves and ends up unable to do something it'll come down on them. Now, Even mention a hero as to why a person is there and all bets are off. To be fair, the kid nearly drowns on the villain's body. And he was swimming around in the sewers, so who knows what he picked up down there. Better safe than sorry. No doubt. But the kid will be warier of hospitals for a while. It'll get even worse once he becomes a hero. A hero. You think the kid will? I have no doubt. He's got a drive to be a hero far greater than just a simple phrase. He's a sweet kid who just likes to help others and train. I'll take your word for it. His parents must be very proud. His mother is. What of his dad? Juza didn't say anything initially. Missing. He's been missing for over 6 years now. My condolences. Thanks. Never say that to them, though. They're still hoping he's alive somewhere. And that he'll come home. Naomesa let out a low whistle. That long and still hoping? You've never heard them talk about him. You can hear how much they love him when they talk about him. When they talk, you can almost feel how much he loved them too. I'll take your word for it. Notes. All Might at the police station. I swear I had the villain. He was in my pocket. All Might yelped. Is this some kind of joke? Am I being hazed? The new cop asked. Cops laugh in the background. All Might aggressively pats his pants. I will find the villain. All Might vanishes in a dramatic hunt for the missing bottle. Guys, this isn't funny, the new cop yells. Izuku wasn't sure what was going on. The Dagobah trash heap beach was diminishing. Someone was either doing something to clean the trash, or the tide was taking the trash away. It was enough to distract him on his morning run. He hoped it was someone cleaning it up rather than it going back into the ocean. Day by day, he'd go back to see the mountain crumbling of trash, with the ocean looking as clean as ever. Someone was cleaning the beach. He was sure of it. Hey, Mom? Yes, Izuku? Do you know who's cleaning the beach? The beach? Dagobah. Izuku clarified. Someone is cleaning the beach? HM. I can't say that I do. Izuku was quiet for a moment. Do you think we could make them something to show we appreciate what they're doing? Inko smiled at her son. Do you have anything you'd want to make for them? Could we make yakitori? So they don't have to worry about plates? It sounds good.
Straight face.
Mirio was thrilled with the progress he was making. Sir NightEye had suggested cleaning the beach to help him get stronger under the suggestion of someone he seemed to admire. Mirio wasn't 100% sure, but he had a feeling it was related to All Might. A lot of his more daring suggestions tended to revolve around the number one hero. He didn't mind, though. He could feel himself getting stronger, and he was proud to see the beautiful sand that had been buried under the heaps of trash. Yes, he was making good progress on the beach. Hello? A young voice called out. Is anyone on the beach right now? Mirio perked up at the inquiry. He hadn't been talked to when he was working on cleaning the beach. But what kind of hero would he be if he ignored someone asking? He made his way towards the road to see who was calling out. I am. Hold on a moment, he responded. He peered around a fridge and saw a boy with curly green hair and a familiar woman. The boy was holding a large basket and a pack of drinks. The kid's face flushed a slight red that worried Mirio. Was he overworking himself to hold the basket? That wouldn't do. He sped up to stand in front of the two. Are you two all right? The familiar woman smiled. We're fine. The boy spoke while avoiding eye contact. Was he shy like Tamaki? We brought food for you guys, as thanks for working on the beach. Mirio felt an urge to ruffle his hair. That was kind of cute. Well, I appreciate it. I was going to stop for lunch soon anyway. Wait. The boy's head lifted, locking eyes with him. You've been cleaning by yourself? Mirio nodded his head. Sir thinks it's good community service. And it's doing wonder for my muscles. Mirio laughed. Izuku looked over the blonde's form. Sure enough, he did look stronger since the last and only other time he had seen him. That seems a bit dangerous to be doing that on your own. Inko spoke up. No worries, ma'am. I'm a hero in training. And my quirk helps in case I get stuck. Permeation would be useful if something fell. The boy muttered. Mirio focused on the boy. Now that he was looking at the kid, He seemed familiar too. But from where? He couldn't recall where he would have seen such fluffy-looking hair. Ah, you've seen the sports festival footage then? Yeah, it's useful. Do you still have to worry about your clothes? The boy asked. Ah, his nudist run. Not his best moment. Actually, no. I got some pretty good advice on how to avoid it from Centipeder. He joked, not noticing that the woman was taking out her phone. Centipeder? Yep. Gave me the idea to get my hair longer to make more clothes compatible with my quirk. The boy had a blank look on his face. Well, here you go. I hope you enjoy, he said and practically thrust the basket of food and drink into his hands. Mirio laughed. Thanks, but this might be a bit much for just me. Care to join me? We would love to. The woman, kid's mom Mirio figured, jumped in. I'm sure Izuku would love to catch up with you. Catch up? Wait, did he know them? Oh, how embarrassing. Who were they? It seemed the woman had mercy as she showed a picture he instantly recognized. The convention picture with him, Tamaki, and the Centipeder kid. He chuckled at the memory. So this was Centipeder. Well, it's nice to see you again. I'm Togata Mirio. You can call me Mirio. Me Midoriya Izuku. I guess you can call me Izuku. With her phone still out, Inko took a picture of the two boys. Mirio all smiles and sunshine, and Izuku half stuck in his shy embarrassment, and half excited to be able to ask questions about Mirio's quirk. She sent the image to Centipeder with a picnic basket emoji and a question mark. Well, there's plenty of food. No sense in having it go to waste. Let's eat! He pulled Izuku down into the clean sand, and they both started pulling out the yakitori and taking a bite. Inko took more pictures to spam Centipeder's phone.
Straight face.
Centipeder enjoyed his friendship with Inko. He really did. But she had her moments that tested his patience. Like when she spammed his phone with messages. Not that it happened often, but it could be irritating. Especially when he was standing in front of his boss in a meeting, he was thankful it was on vibrate. The ringtone for Inko was just embarrassing. That said, his vibrate was not quiet. If glares could kill, he was certain Sirs would have him diseased. Are you going to answer that? It seems important. Centipeder held back a snort. Knowing Inko, it could be anything from a sale to Izuku trying a new move to Izuku trying to see every possible future, and her letting him know everything that Izuku was letting slip with his infamous mumbling. Still, he opened his phone. Sure enough, the number came up as Mom Friend. Inko. I'm sure it can wait, Sir Dash. The phone buzzed again. Damn it, Inko. Well, let's see it, he said, holding out his hand. At least he knew that Inko never sent anything inappropriate. He watched as Sir stared at the phone. Mom. Friend? A friend of mine. She mothers everyone. Sir NightEye handed back the phone, not having looked at the messages. Let me know if there is an emergency. Centipeder recognized the command to check his messages while still giving him his privacy. He opened the messages and saw Mirio with Izuku. With Inko's yakitori. Damn. Mirio better bring back leftovers. Inko's cooking was good. No emergency, sir. Just excitement. Sir only wanted to know if it were an emergency. Getting pictures of Mirio, Izuku, and tasty yakitori was not an emergency.
Straight face.
Inko was thrilled to see Izuku interacting with another person. He wasn't antisocial by any means, but meeting new people could be intimidating. His habit of peering into the future to calm himself down tended to creep other people out with what information he knew based on the first few minutes of conversation they never had with him. Mirio didn't seem bothered as it was technically the second time they had met, and he was a friendly boy. I can't wait until the beach is clean. It'll be nice to see people enjoying it. Yeah. Izuku sat calmly next to the flasher who never flashed him when an idea came to him. You think I could help? Mirio blinked at Izuku. You may want to ask your mom. She's not wrong that it could be dangerous. He chuckled. Izuku turned to give his mother large pleading eyes. She held back a laugh. Only her son would plead to do community service. You can only if Mirio is here with you. I don't want you to get hurt, especially if no one is around. I can't wait to work with you, my little kohai. Izuku's face flushed red. I'm not your kohai. You don't see me as your senpai? Don't you want to go to UA? Well, yes, dash. And when dash. Not if, when. You're there, you'll be a first year, and I'll be a third year. So you'll be my kohai. Mirio seemed far too pleased with the revelation. Izuku half wondered if he could convince him not to refer to him as his kohai. As nice as Mirio was, he was still Sir NightEye's intern. And to be his kohai would mean that he would be even closer to Sir NightEye. He didn't get to say anything before Mirio pulled out his phone, threw his arm over Izuku's shoulder, and snapped a picture. What are you doing? Izuku asked, a little confused. Sending my friends a picture of my new kohai. Izuku lunged for the phone. But Mirio was faster. Mirio jumped to his feet and ran along the clean portion of the beach as he began to write out his message to his friends as Izuku chased him. Inko took advantage of being ignored and took a video. Centipeder would appreciate it. Notes. Centipeder's phone vibrates. God damn it, INKO! I hope you guys enjoyed your time here. If you did, then please do subscribe my channel. It will motivate me to upload new stories for you guys. If you guys want to see next part, then let me know in the comments box.